Welcome to Education Forum. I'm Herman Badillo, Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the City University. The improvement of education affects all New Yorkers. This program will focus on the key educational issues and challenges before us all. My guests today are David Levin, who is the what we would call the principal of a school in the Bronx, part of the Knowledge is Power program known as KIPP. The school was founded in 1995, and Mr. Levin is the co-founder of that school and another school in Houston, Texas, which have a totally new curriculum and expertise in teaching young people. The school in the South Bronx is the most successful middle school in all of the South Bronx. And that's not easy to do because we have, in my opinion, as a former Bronx congressman and borough president, nothing more than disasters in much of the Bronx. My other guest is one of the students, Jose Fernandez, who is an 8th grade student at the school. And we'll be talking about the problems that the schools in the Bronx have. But first, Mr. Levin, you're a graduate of Yale, and you developed this whole concept of KIPP. How did you happen to come up with that idea?
Well, thanks for having us here today. Basically, we were teachers, myself and another teacher by the name of Mike Feinberg, and we were teaching in Houston, Texas. And during our time there, we were just struggling to get better every year. And we happened to meet a lot of really amazing teachers. There was a woman there by the name of Harriet Ball, and a man out in California by the name of Rafe Asquith. And we put pieces together of things that people have been doing a long time, and we basically wanted to do more with our kids. So we started keeping our kids early in the morning at 7, and we kept them until 5 in the afternoon, and we were just working on getting them prepared for top quality middle schools at the time. And then by our second group, they were doing very well. But they were coming back to us saying that that their middle schools weren't pushing them enough. They weren't being allowed to take the books home.
But you were teaching in a public school in Texas,
Teaching in a
right?
public school, yeah.
So did you have to get permission from the Board of Education to change the hours? And
at that time, we had to get permission from our principal to keep our individual classes later. And then our third year there, we combined our classes and made the Knowledge is Power program, KIPP. And what we decided to do then was that we would have just the kids for 1 year, and we would try to catch them up and get them ready for top middle schools. But by the middle of that year, we realized very quickly that 1 year wouldn't be enough. We would need to keep them for 4 years, and so we decided to try to build a school. And that's what we did in the Bronx, and that's what we've done in Houston as well.
now the school in the Bronx and in Houston are public schools, right?
Public middle schools, yeah.
And you are the equivalent to the principal in the Bronx.
Right.
And yet the hours are from 7:25 in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then Saturdays too.
And the summer.
And the summer.
Right.
Now, did you have to get permission from the community superintendent or the Board of Education to do that?
Yes and no. It's been an evolutionary process. So at first we were part of another school, PS 156 in the Bronx, and we got great support from Maxine O'Connor, who's the principal there. Then we were an annex to that school, and now we're a public charter school with the Chancellor's office. And so we have permission from the Chancellor's office and from the state regents to do the program that we do there.
Now, are the teachers in the school members of the union?
Yes, all of them.
And you get them to agree to have those extended hours? They get the same pay as regular teachers?
But they get, they get compensated for the hours they work as well. I mean, the hours they work in the afternoon, they get compensated for those hours, but their base salaries are the same as other teachers.
And what about the parents? What do the parents say about having those extended hours?
The parents love it. I mean, they love it for a variety of reasons, but they really, one is the results that have been had with the children. As you mentioned, we've been the highest performing middle school in the entire Bronx for the past 3 years, and for 5 years, including the South Bronx itself. And the kids are going off to top quality public, private, parochial high schools. I mean, Jose is eligible for scholarships to all types of top private schools. His sister goes to a good public high school. So the parents are very satisfied by that. And the parents are also satisfied because, the kids are at school longer, which means that, they don't have to worry about their child's safety, and they also know their kids are getting prepared for high school.
Well, let's see about the students. Jose, you went to an elementary school, right, before you came here?
Yes.
And the elementary school, you had regular school hours, right?
Yes.
Now you go to school from 7:25 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and you go on Saturdays and in the summer. How do you like that?
Well, I don't mind it as much because as long as it helps me do better, it has helped me do better, and we have a lot of opportunities. We could stay after school to do our homework if we can't do it at home. If we have any problems, we could call. So
you get regularly about 2 hours of homework every day, right?
yes.
And your parents work with you on it?
Well, if I don't understand it, I'll ask people around my house. But then there's further steps to, if I don't understand it, to understand it.
Do you like this longer school day and the more complicated school system in this school better than in the elementary school?
Well, the elementary school I feel it's not enough. It feels like there's not. They teach us, and then we gotta like go on for ourselves if we want to go further. And we could, as long as we're in KIPP, we could go further. We could even ask the teachers and everything.
Now you play a musical instrument?
Yes.
What do you play?
I play the keyboard.
When did you start that?
I started really playing at last year, at 7th grade.
In the KIPP school?
Yes.
Do all of the kids at the KIPP school play musical instruments?
Yeah, we have an amazing orchestra director, a man by the name of Charlie Randall. He's a legend in the Bronx. People, been teaching for almost 30 years. And all the kids have to learn how to play an instrument and have to learn how to read music before they go off to high school. And then they can, everybody has to do that. And then they can choose to be in the orchestra if they want to as an elective, or they could choose sports or taekwondo. And we have there are about 108. We have 248 students, but only about 180 of them participate in the elective program because the 5th grade doesn't do that. Out of those 180, 144 are in the orchestra. So that's the size of people who've chosen to participate in that activity. So it's really quite outstanding.
You believe that every kid has the potential for musical talent?
Yeah, I mean, we've proven that to be the case. Not every kid's going to go off and play after they leave us, but at the same time, the skills they learn and the discipline they develop is transferable to their other academic classes. If you learn to play the keyboard or you learn to play the violin, you're going to be able to learn algebra. Your confidence will go up. You'll be able to feel like you can read the higher level books they're going to ask you to read at some of the top high schools. And that's what's happening.
Where's the school located physically?
It's about 5 blocks from Yankee Stadium on 156th Street off of Morris Avenue. Okay.
Now, do you get the students from the surrounding neighborhood or from all over the Bronx?
Primarily from the surrounding neighborhood, but students from all over the Bronx are eligible for the school.
And how do you get the parents to sign that they will agree with the schedule that you have?
Well, it's a first-come, first-served process. We meet with the families, and we go through what's called the KIPP Commitment to Excellence form. And in that form, everyone has to agree to the hours of the school as well as the expectations that's outlined for them. That includes, there's a part for the teachers, a part for parents, there's a part for the students. And that's basically how we begin to build the relationships with the families.
I noticed that the form is also in Spanish.
Right.
Do you have bilingual education in the school?
No. But we also recognize that we don't have bilingual classes per se, but we have bilingual faculty, and we also recognize that a lot of the families, are Spanish-speaking families. And so when we meet with them, you have to be able to communicate with them in their native language as well. So that's important to us.
And how many applicants do you have in the normal school year?
We generally have, 3 to 4 times as many applicants as we have space within the time period, and then the list just keeps growing because people tend to hear about us after the school year starts and they want to transfer in. But we have very low, attrition. We have very low mobility, with 2% attrition rate. So of the students who start, in terms of the students who finish, only 2% either move away or don't like the school or some situation like that.
What about the class size?
The standard Board of Ed class size, about 30 kids.
About, same 30 kids?
30 plus.
Do you think that there are too many students in each class?
Even if we have like 30 plus students, we are able to learn because no one really likes to interrupt. They actually listen to the to the teacher what the teacher's saying, and they just don't interrupt other teammates from learning.
Now, say on an average day today, if you didn't have to come to the television studio, you start at 7:25, right?
Yes.
And then you end at 5 o'clock. How many different courses do you have during the course of the day?
I say about, like, with the regular classes, as different days we have different courses. Like, today we're supposed to have novel reading, and tomorrow we're gonna have music. And so we have the regular courses: science, math, reading, etc.
Do you study Shakespeare? Have you studied Shakespeare?
Well, in novel reading, we're reading the novel, the play of the Romeo and Juliet.
In what grade?
Shakespeare.
In the 7th grade or the 8th grade?
8th grade this year.
Very good. My wife, as you know,
Yeah.
is a school teacher. She teaches 7th grade. She's one of the few that teaches Shakespeare, and for some reason, many of the schools don't want to teach it, but I don't see why not. I think I've gone to the programs that she has, and young people his age have played the part of Romeo and Juliet. So
Yep.
I don't understand myself why it is felt that students in New York City can't perform Shakespeare or other performances. Now, one of the things that you've done is that you come to an agreement with the borough president of the Bronx to work to expand the KIPP program to other parts of the Bronx. Tell me about that.
Well, the borough president, Fernando Ferrer, has been instrumental in our success in our first 6 years here in the Bronx. At various critical junctures, he's been a vocal advocate for what we've done, and he's really gotten to know the school quite well. And so what he asked us to do is begin working with schools around the Bronx who are interested to see if this could take root in other places. And so we trained a variety of schools last year, 6. 3 showed interest in the program, and this year we've been progressing through the process with those schools. And one of the things I think that we're learning is something that in the outset we were curious to find out is to the extent that this can happen as part of a regular school, and we've seen bits and pieces of success. It's really dependent, however, on the commitment of the individuals involved. And
Okay. Excuse me.
Yeah.
We want to talk in detail about that, but we have a few announcements. We'll be right back.
sounds great.
Do you think you have the power to change the world?
I can change the world one child at a time.
I know I can make a difference in those children's lives.
I teach.
I teach.
Yes, they're teachers, but to the kids they reach, they're heroes.
I teach.
Do you have the power to wake up young minds, to be someone's hero? Teach, to make an impact on our future. Call 1-800-45-TEACH. Be a teacher. Be a hero.
What if you had to choose between a flower and an elephant? What would you choose? What if you had to decide between a 100-year-old tree and a 1,000,000-year-old beach? Could you choose between drinking clean water or breathing clean air? Now you can choose all these things. EarthShare, the world's leading environmental groups working together. It's one choice we can all live with.
We're back today with David Levin, principal of the KIPP Academy in the South Bronx, and Jose Fernandez, one of the students in the 8th grade in that school. David, you were telling me about your efforts to duplicate and replicate your school in other parts of the Bronx.
Right.
And, you know, that's, to me, that's the biggest issue in our whole school system, is that I believe that students can learn, and you have proven that. I know other people have proven it in individual schools, not as successfully as you've done, but certainly it happens in many schools and in parochial schools. But the whole problem that we have in New York City and in our entire society is how do we successfully duplicate and replicate this. So your efforts are very important to us.
Thank you.
Tell me in detail what you've done and how it looks.
Well, the critical element in the process is really what we call like the 3 Fs and then the 3 Rs. And the 3 Fs are really adequate funding. You need to have the funding, the per pupil expenditures that schools are supposed to have.
Okay, now does New York City have adequate funding?
We're a lot lower than a lot of the surrounding districts and a lot of the surrounding places in New York State. But it's doable within the funding we have if you get all that you're supposed to get. And if you're freed from some of the rules, sometimes you'll get the money, but you'll be told how to spend it. And that's not necessarily the most effective way of expending it for the students that you're serving.
Okay, but it's basically doable.
It is doable.
Okay, go ahead,
but
next one.
But with that funding, you need facilities. And that's a widely known fact, that you need adequate facilities. And then you need freedom. And that we touched on a little bit with the funding. You need freedom to decide how to spend the money, but you also need freedom to have access to the people that you want to have work on your staff. It's very difficult to imagine how businesses would succeed when they don't have the ability to select, to train, and to dismiss their people.
You don't have that ability.
To varying degrees, regular public schools do not have that ability.
In other words, does the Board of Education send you the teachers that you have to hire?
We don't. No, not us, but other public schools. So when you talk about replicating our success, the ability to recruit your people, to train your people, and then to retain them or to ask them to leave is a critical ability. And that's not easy for public schools, not easy for us.
Well, you can't really ask them to leave either if they're members of the union.
Right. So that's why it's not easy. Yeah. So those are constraints upon the system.
So that's the 3 Fs. Now,
that's the 3 Fs. The 3 Rs, and obviously, in addition to the reading, writing, and arithmetic, those 3 Rs, but we're talking about the right people, you're talking about the right training for those people, and you're talking about the right rewards and consequences for those people. Because the success of any school depends upon the individuals, which is why there have been isolated examples, like you mentioned, of outstanding schools, because there have been abilities to attract and, a high-quality group to work there for a certain duration of time.
So you get teachers, let's say. You have to train them in your school?
Yes.
Does the average principal train teachers too?
Not sufficiently. I mean, we're blessed at KIPP to have a full-time staff developer, a man by the name of Fred Shannon, and he works closely with the teachers.
What kind of training do you give a teacher who supposedly, let's say, they come from us, the City University, they have a degree in education, and they pass the teacher's exam, and they want to teach in the South Bronx. What kind of training would you give them?
Well, let me take a second to say, if there is anyone who has those qualifications and is looking for a job, we're always looking for great people. So that, a little plug there.
Sure.
We're always looking for top quality personnel. But then in addition, regardless of how good they are, and regardless of how long they've been teaching, we've found that we've been able to help people take it to the next level by some basic assistance in structuring a basic lesson plan. How do you, for 45 minutes or an hour and a half, engage students in a clearly defined aim, motivate them, and have a variety of activities to accomplish that aim? Very basic stuff that we spend a lot of time working on. And that's basically what we focus on with our teachers. And how do you manage a class of 30 so that the students feel like Jose feels?
My wife says that's the toughest part of the job, to manage. She has 34 kids in the class.
But we believe that instruction drives the bus, but that's not sufficient. So in addition to figuring out how to have a good lesson, you need to manage the class, deal with management issues, as well as discipline issues. And those are skills that can be developed. And also we're fortunate that we have a lot of really good teachers so that people who come to KIPP can also observe others. We're really looking to build a superstar team. So when you ask how do we replicate that, that's where it gets complicated, because how can you continue to find those people to bring them into one place and to support them? And that's the challenge that we're excited about working with the system to solve. I mean,
tell me, Jose, how do you like the teachers?
The teachers they give the right discipline, the right they keep us learning. They keep us paying attention for the whole hour or 45 minutes.
And what do you fellow students say about this?
Well, some students they go along with it. It's a good lesson plan.
Okay, now, you live on 800 Grand Concourse, right? That's about 158th Street, 59th Street in Grand Concourse.
Somewhat.
And the students around you, they don't go to the school, right? They go to a regular public school for the most part.
Yes.
So what do they think about you and the fact that you go to an unusual school, and what do you think about them?
Well, I'm just a regular person, I guess. So they think of me regularly.
Do you do more homework than they do?
Possibly, but
You certainly get out much later because they get out at 3 and you get out at 5, right?
Yes.
And then you have, I'm told, at least 2 hours of homework every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do they think, what do your fellow students who don't go to your school think about the kind of school you go to?
They seem pretty like amazed, because if I tell someone I just met that I go from 7:30 to 5 o'clock in school, they just go, "What?" They're amazed.
I understand that, but they wouldn't want to go to that kind of school, would they?
Well, some of them would, and some of them would not. I mean, they see it as a lot of work, and some of them see it as is a good opportunity, because all those activities that they have from 7 to 5.
So you think if Mr. Levin could work it out so all the schools have that kind of program, the other kids would accept it?
Again, like, some people might want that, and some people might not.
What about your parents?
My parents are fine with that.
And what about the other adults in the building? What do they think of the school?
Well, there was this meeting I've heard about that. Well, they don't want like KIPP to overcome like the school we're in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one building, but we share with other schools.
Uh-huh.
They don't want KIPP to like overcome them for some reason.
Why not? Do you know? Why, David?
Well, one of the challenges we've had to face is basically coexisting, sharing space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's an age-old challenge with the schools in New York. So we exist in a building with 3 other schools, and trying to negotiate that, as Jose said, has been difficult.
How many students in the other schools?
There's a total of 1,400 students in the building, and we're 250 of them. But it's an issue that, fortunately, the students aren't so much aware of, because basically our job is to educate them. But it really is an issue of what are the standards that are being set. You know, and we basically have set this standard for our school, and there's been a lot of issues about, just like you said, are we trying to take over other schools or are we not? And really what we're trying to do is just do for our students the best we can, and how people go from there, it's kind of up to them.
Well, David, Mayor Giuliani just issued the State of the City speech, and he repeated his call for the abolition of the Board of Education. And he has gotten more mellow in the last year, but he still says that basically he feels that the educational system is a disaster in New York City, and I agree with him. Now, with all the difficulties you've had in duplicating and replicating what you do in other schools in the Bronx, suppose that you were to become the chancellor of the school system with a new mayor next year. Would you be able to run the school system, and if not, what changes would you bring about?
I've often thought that the chancellor's job of New York City has got to be one of the most difficult jobs anywhere. But I mean, I've often also thought that the chancellor's job can only be had and held by someone who doesn't necessarily care whether they keep that job for a very long time. Because the changes that would probably be necessary are going to be challenged up and down the line.
Okay, so what changes would you make?
I mean, I think what we talked about in the beginning, what are the freedoms that schools need? And I think that if we need to increase accountability on schools, the critical element is for kids to perform. And that's what we've really proven at KIPP. You know, the students are reflective of the kids in the Bronx. We don't select or screen our students, and yet they've achieved at tremendously high levels. And so it's clear that the kids can do it. So it's not the kids' fault. So somewhere along the lines, we haven't set up the structures for them. In order to do that, you have to be able to get the right people in there, train them sufficiently, pay them sufficiently. I mean, we're losing teachers daily. It's in the papers, to the suburbs, to retirement. And you have to have that freedom to create an environment in the school. And then principals need to be held accountable by someone as well.
Do you think you could get the cooperation of the teachers' union?
I think that the tide is turning. I think the public has had enough. And I think basically people want the schools to work. And so I think the union is in a position now where they have to be supportive of change. They have to be supportive of things that are going to work for kids, while at the same time, look out for the rights of teachers. But there is a very fine line there that has certainly been attacked publicly of where the union falls on.
Do you think it's necessary to abolish the Board of Education?
I think it's an impossible idea, because there's going to be another system. If you get rid of this board, you're still going to need a system to replace it. I think the system itself is got to be changed, but I don't think we can necessarily get rid of the system.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you, David, and thank you, Jose, for
Thank you
being
very
with us
much.
today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can reach us by email at our website, www.cuny.tv, or write to us at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016.